Welcome to today's Apprenticeship Illinois webinar. Happy National Apprenticeship Week. We're very, very happy to have all of you here. My name is Antonio Gomez. I will be your technical support for today. If you have any issues with technology, please feel free to send them my way. Go ahead and put them in the chat. I can take care of them. If you have any questions, we will be holding audience questions until the end. But if you don't want to forget them, you can either drop them in the chat or put them in the Q&A function. If you don't see the Q&A function, it will be on the More button on the bottom of your screen. Just so you know, this webinar will be recorded and it will be uploaded to Apprenticeship Illinois on our partners page. You will be able to see that probably in the next couple of days or so. All registrants will receive an email with a link to the recording if you would like to share it out with your network. And just so you're aware, you are able to unmute yourself and turn on your cameras. So as this is recorded, we would recommend that you are aware of that and don't turn on your cameras or turn on your mics unless you mean to. We will also be offering closed captioning for accessibility's sake, so feel free to go ahead and turn that on. And without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and pass this on to Nate.
Thank you so much, Antonio, and happy National Apprenticeship Week, everybody. I'm so glad to join you here today for our innovative program showcase to talk about an amazing program we have here in the state of Illinois. It serves as a great example for any employers, workforce stakeholders interested in really investing in work-based learning opportunities here in the state of Illinois. Before we get into our amazing panel with D&D Electric today, I want to talk a little bit about Apprenticeship Illinois and specifically about our apprenticeship specialists. We are very fortunate to have a network of apprenticeship specialists across the state who conduct in-person and virtual apprenticeship outreach to employers in your area through virtual and in-person consultations. Our apprenticeship specialists are a one-stop shop, a concierge service for any employers interested in developing or joining a registered apprenticeship program. They help develop and register the program from start to finish. They connect employers to intermediary partners and other applicable services. They are great. We have a number of them on the call today. I know I cannot speak highly enough of our apprenticeship specialists. If you would like to connect to an apprenticeship specialist in your area, please visit apprenticeshipillinois.com/employers, where all of our apprenticeship specialists can be found along with their contact information and the counties they cover. If your county does not have an apprenticeship specialist, I've got good news and I've got bad news. I will be working with you as your specialist. I'm happy to be an extension of your team. Please see me as a resource. My calendar is your calendar. I'm always happy to help work on apprenticeship programs with you. One thing I want to share, because it is National Apprenticeship Week, I'm going to stop share and reshare, is the Department of Labor's apprenticeship.gov apprenticeship partner finder, because whenever we have events like this and we talk about registered apprenticeship, people always want to know, okay, but what are the opportunities near me? What are the training providers near me? And this is a great way to find that. So if we go to apprenticeship.gov and we go to resources down to partner finder, what it will allow us to do is search by zip code. And so I'm going to throw in the chat just because somebody asked it earlier. Quincy, Illinois, we're going to search. And you can see it pulls up all of the apprenticeship programs within a certain area. And this one, they actually have an embalmer program, believe it or not. Isn't that interesting? If you are interested, whether you work directly with participants or would-be career seekers, this is a great tool for you. If you are an employer looking for training provider partners in your area who might already have some of that expertise, this is a great tool for you. A great way to find out what's already going on in your area in terms of registered apprenticeships. So please check out that partner finder on apprenticeship.gov and find out about all of the great opportunities currently available in your area. Without further ado, we will then move on to our panel today. Well, I guess a little bit further ado, a brief reminder on the basics of apprenticeship. We boil our apprenticeship programs down to what we call the 3 C's: competencies, coursework, and compensation. The first C, competencies. What do the apprentices need to know how to do by the time they finish their program? 2, coursework. What learning in a classroom environment are apprentices going to do that supplements that on-the-job mentorship? And 3, compensation. How much are the apprentices going to earn and when are they going to earn it? Apprenticeships help create higher retention through transparency about compensation. All of this is on paper from day one. And so we're very fortunate today to be joined by D&D Electric, who are leading the state in terms of their innovative practices. And so I would like to start off today. Um, Please tell us about your program. Our wonderful folks from D&D Electric. Tell us a little bit about D&D Electric. Give us some background on the business and about the occupation that you train for at your facility.
Go ahead, Dave. I'm David Martin. I'm one of the D's in D&D. The other one is Darla, my wife. And we worked in coal mines forever. We started a coal mining construction company, and the money got really, really tight. But in the process, I had got my solar license. And one of our largest customers in the mine went bankrupt, and we thought we were going to lose all. But we were able to recover through solar. And then as we became approved vendors, we had our license, and we became equity eligible contractors. And through all of that, we were able to start to learn about apprentices and apprenticeship programs. And after that, I don't know, I think we went from 10 employees to a whole lot. We cover the state now from southern Illinois down to Mounds, and we went all the way to the Milwaukee line. Mm-hmm. And we have a lot of apprentices, 47 at present. Wow. And we have some other stuff that I'm going to let these guys tell you about. So the reason I was able to do that was not me. Of course, God worked with me and Darla with our decisions. But in that process, I found a young man that I had known his dad and I known his grandpa through my dad. And he came on board and he kept talking about apprenticeships and apprenticeship programs. And he's the one that brought it on really for us. Now, I've got some good news that go along with that. As of a few months ago, we got a director that took a lot of the load off of him and I, because we're building a business, talking with customers, bringing in new customers, and taking care of material, equipment, all kinds of things. And we have in D&D, I think we got probably a good 6 businesses that are affiliated or owned by or owned part of. So we had our hands full. But we found this young lady that had been in the therapy business. My son had been in the therapy business, and he is now working on becoming our president. But anyway, he had a gal that he worked with, and she happened to be married to this guy sitting beside me. And so April Roberts is now our director. And she's not only just that, over our training. We work with the DOJJ. We work with just a lot of different ones. And then we also have the training for our apprenticeship programs. So I'm going to turn it over to Justin now and let him tell you about, because he knows what all we offer and what we're going to. And he's out there digging every day. And then he can turn it over to April and we'll let her tell you about what she does.
Absolutely. Thanks, Dave.
So, Nate, is there anything specific that you want me to talk about that would help kind of direct this?
So specifically, I would just love your background, how you came to be with the organization, and then a little bit about what is the occupation that your program trains for. Tell us about what your organization does in terms of the actual job, and then how you developed that apprenticeship and how you train up those apprentices.
Yeah, so I was in an apprenticeship through the IBEW. My background is I'm a journeyman lineman, and when Dave asked me to come on, he wanted to take the company. Was kind of we were a little bit smaller then, probably about 30 people now. I do believe we got up to about 200 employees, and so it's really grown. But one of the things that we were lacking is we could get a lot of people that could work for us, so we could find people in bodies, but we didn't have a craft. We wanted to really build a craft for these young people, a lot of adults too in there, but kids coming out of high school, or we worked with the DOJJ, and I'll get into that in just a second. But what we were finding out is the experience that we were getting into with some of the construction sites that we were working on. So we have PLC contracts where we're doing PLC work in a lot of factories. We have residential, commercial, and industrial electric work that we do. We do a lot, even though we do heavy in the solar presence. We have a really heavy presence in the coal mines right now. We're working all the way from Idaho, West Virginia, Kentucky, Pennsylvania. We've got all those states. So even our apprenticeship doesn't just cover guys that are going into the solar field. It covers the guys that are in the coal mine, PLC work, industrial, electrical work. So when we were in the space though of the solar, we noticed that we were starting to have to do, and one of the things we'll touch on a little bit later, hopefully, is just how the ratios play a part to this, journeymen to apprentices. We were seeing that we had a lot of labor, and I use that in parentheses, laborers. So we started a labor apprenticeship program too that we kicked off. It's been going for a couple months. So we've got our electrical over here, and we've got our labor apprenticeship over here. That's kind of a background of what we do a little bit. The training that we do is we do ours, and we've had to learn to be a little bit flexible, because when you're training, and our apprenticeship is a little different from other apprenticeships, because you may have even like in a union, you may have a local established everywhere. We're working across the whole state. So instead of people coming to us, we're having to send our instructors maybe to Chicago to do a training for our kids that are up north. And then we have on site in Southern Illinois, we have a facility that's our training facility. So what we do is we'll teach over on site there, but then we will require the guys from up north, when it is hands-on, once a month can come to our location down south, and we help them do all the hands-on training here.
Yeah, one of the things that strikes me first and foremost is just the scope of what you guys have really built with the organization. I mean, Dave, you mentioned starting from 10 people to now working across the state, and all of the logistics of training up a workforce that doesn't all exist in the same location but is across the state. Tell us a little bit about what that looked like. Who was integral? What were the investments that you made as an organization? And I think importantly, I'll click to the next slide here. Why was it beneficial for your organization to do all of this? I mean, you've clearly made significant investments in work-based learning and apprenticeship. Tell us kind of the decision-making process of how you came to make those investments.
When I started in the mines in 1975, it was custom for the company to pick out who, in coal mining, you're required to have a qualified electrician. And that qualified electrician has to have underground electrical cards, and they have to be maintained. You have to do retraining once a year. And you have to pass an extensive test to get them. Well, when I started, I didn't know anything about what they were doing, but I found out that mainly the company chose who they wanted to have cards. And they were all of their supervisors. So I was not a supervisor, so I wanted to get my cards. And they set me up for some training to get it done. And I was told that, well, don't worry about it. If you come through this class, you automatically get your cards. Well, the federal man, that was two of them, were giving the test. They looked at my notes and said, well, you can use those. And I said, you mean I can use these while I'm taking the test? And he said, absolutely. They're not going to do you any good, but you can use them. Well, there was a 5-part test, took all day to take it, and you had to make an 80 on each part. But if you failed a part, you just had to take that part over. Well, I didn't know how that worked, so I studied like I did in college. I crashed for it. I mean, I studied and studied, and I passed 3 parts, and I failed 2, and one of the parts we didn't even cover. And I was kind of put out until all of the information went back to the mine superintendent, and he notified me, said, hey, you were the only one that passed anything. And he said, you're going to get your cards because you can go back past 3. And what the federal had done is said no more. From now on, we are going to require these guys to know this. because we were having several electrical fatalities back in those days. And so it became a burn for me to have a craft. And so, and I had been involved in mining all those years. So that was kind of what we did. And then when we started solar, I was troubleshooting my son's system in Kansas City. Had never seen a solar system in my life. And so I'm working on it. And I, like any good electrician, I go over and throw the power, isolate it, and I start troubleshooting it. My meter lead wouldn't get on it well. So I started to move the wire a little bit so my meter could get on it. And I'm telling you, that 360 volt DC got a hold of me and shattered my teeth. I mean, it hurt. And I thought, what's going on? And I realized the sun was shining on the panels, and that DC voltage didn't care. It was coming through to the inverter. Even though I had isolated it from the grid, I still had 300 volts DC. And I thought, my goodness, this is a whole new deal. Electricians aren't going to understand this. This is, you know, we're not used to this. And so whenever Justin started talking about apprenticeship, I started checking in with the Illinois Science Program. And I found out that they had requirements for that coming up. It wasn't right off the bat. But as it progressed, and I kept reading it, and I thought, we are going to have apprentices. Well, we have, I'm not saying anything union, non-union, that has nothing to do with it, but we weren't involved with the IBEW in our area. So we didn't know, I didn't know much about apprenticeship programs. Justin did from his background. So we started marrying that and realized that solar was so new. I got a hold of the Department of Labor. We couldn't even figure out how to pay people. And they couldn't tell me how to pay people. I mean, it was a learning process. Solar is new. The mines, we had hundreds of years of background to get information from how it had progressed. There wasn't that. There was some information about solar, but very, very little. And we reached out to SI, the Solar International.
Yeah.
And we went through their classes, and we saw that, you know, they did a pretty good job of explaining it. So that's when we decided, hey, we've got to get these young people trained, because here's how I would tell them. The playing ground is leveled. No matter how long you've been an electrician, it's leveled. We got to start all over. And that's what gave us the burn. And then it evolved, because as time went on, we had to have a higher percentage of apprentices on the field. And then we to fund our apprenticeship, we could, if you didn't have apprentices, you had to pay everyone journeyman wages. Now, the Department of Labor told me, I said, there's not enough available to do this. He said, well, I don't care who installs it, as long as you pay them journeyman wages or electrician wages. So we saw how we could fund it by using a 1-to-1 ratio, and that would help us. We still have to pay the same on all of the fringes, but on their base labor, the journeyman, the apprentices, we didn't have to pay as much, because prevailing wage requires you to pay exactly this, and this. And we figured out that's what was going to fund us. And then it just grew and grew. Now, we did run across some snags. We didn't have enough journeymen to support our apprentices. So we worked with the Department of Labor and figured out how to do that. And we were able to balance it. And we still aren't perfect on balance, but I would say we're better than we're really good at it. And the reason I say that is we had to go through audits. We actually had to pay some fines, and we had to pay restitution to make sure that everybody got paid right. And we hired a couple of gals. My wife was doing all the accounting for, I would say at one time, at least 150 employees by herself, and 1 or 2 girls. And so we hired some people that would understand how the Department of Labor finances requires the balance for us to have. So we're running true to a true apprenticeship program. And that was some stuff we had to go through. But at the end, we started seeing these young guys that were making really, really good money, and they were excited. And they would all say, because I'll tell you the truth, when we first started, we didn't have to, we had to have a few apprentices, but very few. So we could pay them journeyman wages and get by. But as we developed our apprenticeship program, then the apprentices' wages went down. I was really worried about that. April and I called 40 of them one day. I mean, well, maybe not that many, but we called a bunch. And I was always worried when I say, now, if you want to be in the apprenticeship program, you'll get the craft, and we will pay for all the program. There's some tools involved that we'll furnish you, but you have to have skin in the game. And one of the things is you'll have to go to your classes, and we're not going to pay you to go to class. That's on your part. That's the skin that you have in the game. And there's another thing, and we always hated telling them this because we didn't know what was going to happen. We'd say your wages are going to go down considerably to get in this apprenticeship program. And I had a few to say, I don't want in, but very few. 90% of them said, we don't care. We want a craft. We want to learn the electrical business. We want to learn the electrical craft. And those guys are in there, and they did. They took probably a $18 an hour cut in pay. I will say though, when your hourly rate is $60 an hour, that's not as hard to swallow, but it's still a hard pill to swallow. And that's how that came about, and that's how we been able to start the other apprenticeship program. April and I just got with the guys and said, here's what we got, and they want the same thing. They want a craft. And I had a gentleman at church to say, I need you to call my son in St. Louis. I said, why? I said, you need to discourage him from starting a business. I said, why would I do that? He said, because you can't get anybody to work today. There's nobody wants to work. And I got a little bit ticked. I looked him right in the eye and I said, I beg your pardon. We need to quit speaking that. We need to quit speaking that over our young people, because I've got, at that time, I don't know, I had 40 or 50. I said, I've got 40 young men that are dying to learn, and they're at work every day. And I'm so proud of them. We need to quit speaking that over them, because they do want to learn.
Thank you so much for sharing.
I apologize.
So often I know that, like, I say a lot of information and people get overwhelmed, but Dave, thank you so much for sharing all of that, because I feel like there are so many things we can pull from the story of the successes that you guys have had. I mean, a family operated business building from the ground up, seeing an industry that's changing, an industry that's shifting to a skill set that you yourself weren't necessarily comfortable with, coinciding with requirements on the projects that you're working on, that you have it. And so all this confluence of factors come together where it's like, okay, this is the path forward. And in making that investment, I mean, the idea of having, 40 apprentices who are willing to take a $20 an hour pay cut because they are that invested in the career trajectory that you've helped put them on, I think that's a huge, huge indicator of the benefits that we see in registered apprenticeship programs in Illinois, because you are investing in that talent, and clearly they are returning that investment. They have that skin in the game. And so I just think that is so inspiring to hear about the quantity of the successes that you guys have had. And even just hearing some of the bumps in the road with that, getting everything built out over time and figuring things out and how it works. I think it really shows the worthwhile nature of this investment that you all have made in registered apprenticeship. So off the bat, just thank you for sharing that, because to me, that's incredibly inspiring to hear.
Thank you.
Thank you. We got April here if you've got any questions for her.
Absolutely. So tell us, you've mentioned some of this, of course, but tell us a little bit about why apprenticeship, in addition to the requirements, why is it a good fit for these roles that you're utilizing it in? Tell us a little bit about your training facilities, about the structure of the program, what the program actually looks like on a day-to-day basis for the apprentices going through it. I don't know if this is April's portion or who would be the best, but.
Yeah, sure. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you great.
Yeah, so I handle a lot of the day-to-day operations and the communication with the apprentices. Um, we have a hybrid program, and so our program requires so many on-the-job training hours, and then we also require some in-person instruction hours as well. And then we also have an online platform educational tool that we use where the students can log in and work through kind of a self-paced, within reason, through their levels of education that way as well. And so I'm kind of in charge of tracking that. I keep track of their time spent on their online education and then also their hours worked and as well as their in-person instruction hours. So that's very important to stay on top of because that is a requirement of your apprenticeship program. Whenever you set up your apprenticeship, that you maintain those standards. And so you kind of, whoever your director is becomes pretty much a compliance officer just to make sure that people are doing what they're supposed to do and when they're supposed to do it. I would say also it's been very instrumental in making sure that we have the appropriate instructors in place. We have some very skilled people that are instructors. They've been in the workforce for, I don't know,
30 years.
30 years probably. And so it was very important to us to make sure that who was performing the in-person instruction for them was skilled and qualified and that we were able to provide a very quality education for our apprentices. And so that was a very important step for making sure that all of our instructors are keeping a very high standard of education in front of our apprentices. What else?
One thing I would like to add to that is as we grow, he was mentioned in some of the places we go. We're going to Central Illinois, and we had to have some people to pass a test, and then we're one in Minnesota that they're not easy tests, even for someone that's worked in the electrical field for 30 or 40 years. A lot of it is, deciphering what the NEC says, and we're based off of, I can say it, Mike Holt, and he's the foremost instructor on the NEC. But gosh, just this yesterday or today, one of the guys that passed that test was one of the young guys. Is he in the apprenticeship program? The guy that passed it, he's not yet, but he was one of the young guys that will be in the apprenticeship program. And he's the one that had the electrical stuff from up north. Yeah. We're looking at him to be an instructor. Yeah, I knew that he was affiliated with us. But anyway, he just stepped up and passed that test. And we got another gentleman. He's in the process of doing it, but he came deeply from the coal mines. Well, he passed all of his Kentucky cards, Illinois cards, and that's a really, really hard test. But what you do in the coal mines is dealing mainly with the coal mines. And when you get to the NEC and the test for the master test for the state of Minnesota, this covers a whole different gambit and really doesn't even cover coal mines hardly at all. So you can see the difference, but that's another thing that we're learning is this education. We figured out our company is going to have to be passing tests all over the United States. And with our background, with these young men and the ones that are used to studying, remember the first story I told that nobody in the mines, and I think there was like 14 or 15, and about 7 of them were supervisors. And none of them passed that test except I passed 3 parts of it. I was used to studying. They weren't. They were good and their craft, they could outwork me 3-1. They knew how to change motors and how to troubleshoot transformers. And I didn't even know what a 3-phase transformer did at that time. But I was willing to study and learn that part of it. And I think by us, with what we're doing, these guys are learning how to study and take tests now. So as they grow older, in their craft, they're going to be so much further ahead of it than I was. That and even Justin, yeah, I mean he's lived his craft and he was way at the top of his craft. But I think these young men are going to bring things to the table with AI, with it coming on, with all the computer technology and learning how to do stuff. I think they're going to surpass us so much with the founder our craft. That's what I'm really excited about. With, I guess, to dig down in the deep of Dave Martin, that's what you'll find.
Absolutely. And I think when we think about the technical nature of the role, I mean, it really sounds like apprenticeship combining that on-the-job experience with that classroom portion was just what you needed for your organization to be able to train up a workforce that could do the on-the-job and also pass those tests. And as you grow, that's become even more important. And so it really seems like a two birds with one stone situation, because at the same time as you're meeting, well, probably more than two birds, right? But at the same time as you're meeting these ratio requirements on the work site, you're also getting a whole cohort full of workers who have the mentorship from your existing journey workers, while at the same time getting the knowledge they need to pass those tests so that they can do additional projects for you. So it really seems like it's been an ideal solution for you. We're so thankful to hear about your program today. Tell us about what sort of ROI, return on investment. This can be tangible, this can be intangible. What have you seen from your apprentices, or some success stories you would like to share with kind of our workforce community that you've seen from your program?
I think one of the things that we're seeing is, because of us having the training portion of this to be able to jump in and really hone in on certain things. A lot of companies that are in the testing world with the solar companies right now, because of us being able to have the training to do that, we're actually now getting called from other companies that don't have the bandwidth to do this. So they're calling D&D to come in and do a lot of training for them. With the technologies that we've learned through even our apprenticeship program. So the investment there, with even some of our apprentices that were right on the edge of, even though it's a new apprenticeship program, have went through their hours, getting ready to top out. They're ready to go on their own to be able to do some of these testing things literally across the United States that we can do now because of one of our apprenticeship training in those specific areas. So I think that's good. Return on investment, I think for us, a lot of the ROI on that is just actually being able to take a young person, maybe even an adult, from and I don't say this in a negative way, but an average worker, to now, instead of just as people would say in the construction industry, a strong back, weak mind. Now we have strong backs and strong mind people that understand what they're doing, not just, electricity that we know that, hey, I better watch out if I touch it the wrong way, but they understand the theology behind it. They understand how it works. They understand a deeper level and how things go together. So now when you go out, not only do our jobs more productive on that end, because we have guys that understand what they're doing instead of have to be told every step of the way. They actually understand what's going on because of the processes that we've put in place to teach that. So,
and that's so huge, because now having strong body, strong mind, having everything good to go, that is so important for your industry, especially. You guys have shared so many great insights, I think, with us today. What was something you would tell an employer in your industry, or in the general electric trades, or in the trades in general, who is looking into registered apprenticeship? What advice would you give them?
I can go on this too, but you can speak also. Yeah.
Well, the only thing I want to say is we've kind of left out one of the really important things. I mean, you remember me mentioning getting my teeth shattered when I grabbed the wrong end of the wire? The safety issue is what I'm talking about. With with the apprenticeship program, the way April has it set up, we have an opportunity to not only tell them, but to show them on a regular basis different safety issues, because it's just like anything else. Sorry, that thing never shuts up. Just like anything else, it's a new world today on the solar field. There's not a, I mean, there's a lot today, but we don't have 50 years of experience. So there's new things, new safety issues that we don't realize. Side by sides. I mean, everybody loves to get on their side by side and ride through the fields and just go crazy and slide sideways. But no, that's a safety issue. They need to learn how to correctly operate side by side. And you don't think about that. Then you think about having 30 guys out there glassing, or 30 guys out there racking, and skidsters running around. Skidsters don't see out the back. That's not a big deal, but you get that many people on the solar field, it is a big deal. So as things arise, we are able to see it and we can address it on a regular basis. And that's something that I don't want us to leave out, is the safety issue of being able, because I know when I started in the mines, I got my cards, and buddy, I was changing motors and 3-phase 480 breakers and all kinds of stuff. And the rules were you had to have somebody in sight and sound. Well, underground, there's no light. You turn off your bug light, it's right here, nothing. So my point is, I think we were really going to grow, and I hope we do, because the safety stats aspect of what we're doing has to be considered, and we have to make that a priority. And that's something that we kind of lose track on, don't you think, Justin?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I think one of the things from the practical standpoint of an apprenticeship, not that I really am not some smart guy that put this thing together. That was probably the easiest part, is working with the Department of Labor to build out our schedule, to build out what the apprenticeship program is going to be, what it's going to look like, the hours that are going to be put in there, what things we want to do, because they have those templates already kind of built out. Where I think it gets hard, and don't get discouraged if you're somebody who's going to be doing this, is there's going to be a lot of calls, because it's an ever changing with the Department of Labor on whether it's federal, whether it's state. There's so much to these apprenticeship programs. And I think from even the people that may be listening on this that have any influence with that, is to be able to help these companies that are, because we have spent a lot of money and we have spent a lot of time trying to figure this out. I'm actually helping another company right now that's wanting to do an apprenticeship program, and some of the things that we went through on the onset of it, and not reinventing the wheel, but how do we make this just better and easier for them. And so I think to really not give up, because there's been a lot of times that Dave and I have just been like, let's just throw in the towel and be done with this. We can go back to a 10-person company, not have to deal with all of the things that go along with a company growing, the growing pains of that. And so I would encourage, people on a call, or maybe somebody listening to this that's saying, man, I want to start an apprenticeship. I need to start one, but man, it seems so hard and so discouraging, that really the people in the state and the federal government, they do want to help you. And it's reaching out and finding those right people to communicate with, and it will benefit your company, and it will be good. But like I said, I just want to encourage you, don't give up.
Absolutely. And I love you giving a shout out to our apprenticeship specialists and folks. I know we got some folks from Mantricon on the call who you've worked with. Do you want to talk about what that partnership has looked like? We got Abby Russell.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I can talk about that. It has actually been really, really wonderful experience. That team over there is really, really good. We've worked with them on several projects, but probably the biggest one is because of our apprenticeship program, and then just some things that the state requires. Kind of full disclosure on this one: the state requires that you have people. So we have a lot of people from that work in our organization that are ex-coal miners that have in that area there. So a lot of the solar projects require people that are either ex-coal miners or previously incarcerated. So we've teamed up with the Department of Juvenile Justice, and we're training kids that are coming from incarceration. And so what happens is when they're about on their last 6 months of being incarcerated, then they'll come to us. We'll train them before they get released, and then when they get released, they can go right into the workforce. So that's been a really great program for us. We love that program, doing that, and they've been really instrumental in helping us in that program, but then also in just a lot of the other programs. We do a what's that called, the work experience program, and so there is for companies like us that are growing, and we can bring in people that maybe wouldn't get an opportunity in the workforce because they never, me coming off of a farm, Dave lived on a farm. We just kind of naturally fell into the skilled work with our hands and understood that. We get a lot of kids from the city or that have came in, maybe live in town, that haven't had a lot of that. So for those first days before we put them on a job, we can actually bring them in and get that paid for through, the state will help to train those guys on some of our jobs. And Matricon has been an unbelievable partner for us. And I would encourage anybody to look to the resources that the state, because the state of Illinois really is good about having funding to help, companies kind of take that step and kind of alleviate some of the burden of those costs, because that jump it's mind blowing what it costs to go from a small company to, as you're growing to that medium size, to a large company. And that's been really instrumental for us.
But I'd like to add just a pinch to that before we go back. And I'm going to bear some things that, like he was talking about, just things that happened. It's the truth. We were growing so fast that I don't even know if we ran ads in the paper, but people would show up. I would give them a 30-minute interview. And at that time, I did not have an HR girl. I was the HR girl too. And they could walk, they could breathe, they had a car, they could show up at work, hired. And I had a guy that we hired, and he wasn't, one of the supervisors called and said, "Hey, this guy can't do everything he said he is. He'd have to be 60 years old." So we started checking, and I come back in. I said, "Well, what is he, a murderer?" And the room got silent. And the guy had actually been incarcerated at a young age for that. And it didn't show up on his resume. We didn't catch it. That was the extreme. But we had a lot of people that they just heard they could make a lot of money on the solar field, and they were in for it. They didn't realize they had to work out in the sun. They didn't realize that we had some guys that got down in the trench to run conduit, and we had to help them get back out because they weren't physically able to do it. But we didn't, I don't know, my dumbness probably, but I just didn't catch it. And we needed people so hard and fast. We were just putting them to work, and we started to get a high turnover rate. We started to get worried about people getting hurt, people just not physically in shape. Well, here come Matricon along, and they got a program where we can go through them, and they interview, and they kind of test the waters, and then they send them to us, and we get to actually watch them work. What a better fit. And since then, I haven't had to worry about, and I shouldn't say murderers, but but that, that mistake that I made, I've got a buffer. And that's when we started working with Matricon even more. And it's been a lifesaver. So yes, I give a big kudos to that program and helping us get through the hurdles.
Absolutely. It has been such a pleasure hearing insights from you today. I want to give a shout out to D&D Electric, a big thanks to the three of you. I want to open it up now to Q&A from any of our audience members. If anybody has questions for this team on their apprenticeship program, on getting started, on advice, please feel free to unmute or drop those questions in the chat.
You one in the chat, and I see a hand raised. Which one do you want to go with first?
Let's go with Ivan and then Jacqueline.
Thank you. Very insightful. I appreciate you guys providing some of your insights. For disclosure, I'm in California, but I still like to hear about what other states are doing about apprenticeships, just to kind of see if I can get some best practices. And I appreciate those encouragements that you guys were talking about not being discouraged by the process and things like that. But my question is, with what kind of I guess what were some of those bigger hurdles when you guys were working with IBEW? I mean, you guys mentioned the wages and things like that, but how were you guys able to overcome that? Because I'm trying to get a program started here with our local workforce, and so it appears we hit a roadblock working with the unions and kind of what that means to pay and things like that. So, what would you guys recommend?
Well, one thing that we have in Illinois with Illinois Shines, if Illinois Shines supports the program in any way, it has to be prevailing wage. So that took the wage difference out of it. And then we have jobs that are required to be union. And that's growing a lot in the solar industry in Illinois. So we just started building. Luckily, I've had Justin, I came from the mining, which was
Non-union.
the first one I was in was the UMWA. Sorry, I forget my numbers. I came from the UMWA, but he came from the IBEW. And so we just started building a relationship with our business managers over here.
Yep.
And I'd like to give a shout out to Tate. If anybody knows who he is, he has just been here helping us understand what we can do there and what we can't do there. And I don't know, it's been a really, really good thing for me. Now, I don't know what we're going to end up doing with how that's going to end up with the apprenticeship program. My plan is we have 2 companies or 3 companies, 4. We have several companies. Some of them are IBEW and some of them aren't. Tate realizes that. Now, I'm not going to say he don't try to coax me along, and that's his job, and he should, and I respect that. But it has been a learning process to build a relationship with them and let them help us, knowing that we got to work together. And the way I put it out, the first big solar field I worked on, it was a 3,000 acre one here locally. And I went and I spoke to the union and I said, hey guys, it's not going to be a question of union and non-union. It's going to be a question of local and non-local, because all of these jobs are going to be filled, and you're going to see California, you're going to see Florida, you're going to see Alabama license plates in the parking lot, and you're not going to see any local if we don't get our act together. And we did that. We worked together and still work together. Don't you think, Justin?
Yeah.
I don't know if that helped you out completely, but that's our experience.
And I think from the practical standpoint, because it's really non-traditional to have a non-union apprenticeship program in the electrical industry. I feel, mostly and I think it's just making sure that you have a program that is actually viable and is like real world. So it's not something that's just textbook, but you have the people in place to be able to do the hands-on training. For instance, like last week, our training was, we had a job where we were going to have to do a lot of conduit work. And so instead of just having 1 or 2 apprentices on that, we kind of stepped back that week, reshaped the program for that specific week. While we were teaching some of our apprentices that were going to go on there how to do bins, we brought the whole apprenticeship group together, and then they learned to do conduit work together. And so just being able that flexibility, and to be able to compete, because we're seeing now in our area, there's some jobs that I've been talking to some people about that are federally funded, and so it doesn't have a PLA on it, so it doesn't have to be union, and so trying to figure in, where are we going to get the workforce? I don't think that most companies that were a non-union company could do that because they don't have the workforce. Whereas us, we have a workforce. And one of the things that we're working on now is we've got 2 or 3 other contractors locally that are around us that are wanting to get into our apprenticeship program. So what we've done is trying to make this available so it's a bigger pool for us to be able to pull from. And so we're strategically working on that now. When we built our school was kind of built around that to be able to train, so it would break down the barriers of D&D being this apprenticeship program, and it would be, this is the school, so that our neighboring companies would say, hey, we want to come just to get training, and then we can kind of share those apprentices throughout companies to go learn more. I mean, even to build the craft where maybe somebody's doing a lot of conduit work, but we're doing a lot of residential wiring, we can share those to be able to teach that craft better, if that makes sense.
Thank you both. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you again.
Yes, thank you for that thorough answer. Absolutely. Jacqueline in the chat looks like a career seeker and wants to know if she should look into PLCs as a career opportunity. And we got a lot of workforce folks on the call. I would say, yes, absolutely. Look into programmable logic control. There's huge need for that across manufacturing and the trades. So yes, absolutely look into PLCs. Are there any other questions? I want to be mindful of time. This has been such an insightful panel. Thank you again to D&D Electric for creating these opportunities here in Illinois, but also for sharing these practices and their story with us today. If there are no other questions, I'm going to go ahead and say thank you to everyone for being here and happy National Apprenticeship Week. Antonio, please feel free to wrap us up. And thanks again
All right.
to the folks at D&D.
You will all receive an email that has the link to watch this webinar if you would like to pass it along to anybody else. If you have any questions, you can also send them my way, and we will forward them to the appropriate person. I believe that is all. Happy National Apprenticeship Week. Thank you so much, D&D Electric, for being here today, and we hope you had a wonderful webinar. Take care,
Thanks so
everybody.
much, everyone.
Thank you.